If I can get David. We're going to start.
Okay.
You ready?
Yeah.
Good stuff. I feel like there should be more people on the groom side. Morning all, just about, morning. Thanks for coming up to the What Does Green Actually Mean? Got a panel of specialists in their own fields who can hopefully add to the debate. We kind of wanted to put this together not to try and get you green straight away, because that's impossible. It's too big a cake to take a bite out of. So what we're hoping to do is just start those little things, thought process in your mind that might lead you down that journey. So on the panel up front here, we have, I'll let them introduce themselves in a second, but we've got Rob, David and John. Rob, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself and Progress Gym?
Sure, thank you. Firstly, thanks for the invite on the panel, and thanks for your time today, turning up for the discussion. Originally, went through university, discovered working out, became a trainer at a corporate chain, Fitness First. Frustrated there after a few years, looked at it working at independent gyms, and then eventually I thought, let me have a go at running a gym myself. So we've had a Progress Gym open for the last 13 years. We're based in South Somerset. Inherited 70 members when I bought the equipment, and we're on nearly 700 now. So far, so good.
Good morning, Jon Cullum. I started Greenwing Energy Solutions back in 2009 and help homeowners and business owners to reduce energy consumption. We started with one energy saving solution initially, and now we've got over 25 different technologies to support clients with their net zero agenda and to actively reduce consumption and find ways to reduce costs. Since the energy crisis, we've had a huge amount of work to provide clients with different solutions, and also proof concept of new technologies that are constantly emerging. So right at the forefront of any sort of green agenda that business might have. Thank you.
My only claim to fame is that I wrote an article at the beginning of COP26 because I thought, what are the industry doing for reaching zero COVID? And so because of it was in Glasgow, then I wrote this article, and you can still get it from our website. Just scroll down, and it's all about how the industry should be moving towards zero COVID.
And then myself, I'm Darren Williams, owner and founder of Quick Switch. So that's a company that's delivering the energy procurement basket for independent gym owners. Passionate, it sounds a bit counterintuitive because the greener a site becomes, the less money we make in commission. But counterintuitively, I want us to push that agenda. And it's really interesting that the procurement basket, there is a green tariff and there is a non-green tariff. And I'm going to share some numbers with you a bit later on. But also, whilst I think this is a really important subject, it's obviously not to operators because it's really difficult, and I think it can be a little bit overwhelming in terms of how do we achieve this as SMEs. You've got big corporates who have C-suite support, and they'll employ consultants because there's enough headroom in budget. You guys have got to wear so many different hats. So I think that's what we wanted to get across, if you like, just that, taking those steps. It doesn't matter how small, as long as you're taking those steps. So obviously we're seeing extremes in temperature and climatic conditions, increasing in frequency and magnitude, and that's down to global warming, which is the main byproduct of CO2 emissions. So what we're looking to do here is not just talk about CO2 as well, because there's a few other bits and bobs you can do about sustainability. And it is a simple word, but it hides a lot of complexities. So there's a lot of talk, obviously COP28, isn't it, today, in Dubai. You've got the global leaders, you've got our leaders who are rowing back on certain things. They set quite tough targets to meet for 2030, and then they're rowing back on it. So what does that mean for you guys? Greenwashing, so we'll come on to that a bit later on, but I don't know if you saw that, where companies like Boohoo were claiming that their fabrics and their products were sustainable or more sustainable than they actually were, and the dangers of just talking about greenwashing and trying to make yourself look green when you're not actually green. And as I said there, a huge undertaking for SMEs. Rob has been invited onto the panel, if he could have the mic. Rob's been invited onto the panel as an operator. He's one of probably the most active in this area. Where do we start? How did you start, I guess?
We, 2 years ago, walked around the facility, myself and my operations manager, and we looked at what we were doing, what we weren't doing, where the opportunities were. And we have started really small, just timers on computers on reception to turn things off. We're not going to sell any coffee after 6 o'clock. Let's turn the coffee machine off. That saves 3.5 hours every day of the coffee machine being on, 364 days a year. We have various other times. Some of the lights are on PIR sensors, so some of the lights come on automatically, go off automatically. The ones that don't, then there's an instruction on the computer downstairs to turn the lights off when they're no longer needed. We don't turn the treadmills on in the morning. We don't turn the step mills on in the morning. The members who want to use the treadmills and the step mills, they turn them on when they're needed. We turn them off as the need falls through the evening. They get turned off. We've got a chilled water fountain, which I'm sure some facilities leave their fountains on overnight. And if you're 24 hours, I guess you've got to do that. If you're not 24 hours, turn the fountains off overnight. They don't need to be running whilst you're closed. Again, the heating doesn't need to be on whilst you're closed. The lights don't need to be on whilst you're closed. Some obvious stuff, some not so obvious stuff. But we've stopped doing single-use plastics, water bottles in the shop now. So we sell our own water bottles and we sell our own shakers. And we advertise the fact of how many bottles we saved through the fountains in the gym. This shows bags of metal cans, which we no longer gift to Biffa. These get sold to a scrapyard, which then the metal gets reused, and we get some funding, we get some cash back for selling the cans back to the scrapyard. It's also meant that we've been able to quarter our recycling and refuse collection, which has saved money month on month as well.
What was the first thing you did, though? Just out of interest. Can you remember?
Was the audit. The first thing was the audit, and then we looked at the most basic things, like every gym that I know of that I've been to has a computer on reception. Let's put a timer on the computer to tell the team, turn these lights off, turn the coffee machine off, just the basic stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not like we've rehearsed this, but John, what's the first thing you do?
Carry out energy audits, so energy saving audits. So the increase of that interest over the last couple of years, again, because of the energy crisis and net zero agenda that's out there. Huge amounts of businesses now requesting, had one today, in fact, requesting an energy audit for a shopping centre. And that allows a client to have, or a customer to have a roadmap, if you like, and some focus on where to start with energy saving in particular. Very quickly, what I'll do to sort of echo what Rob was saying is put some monitoring in, put some energy monitoring in to look at where all your energy is being consumed. And you can do that relatively easily. It's not too costly, and there is a really good ROI, so we can find energy saving opportunities very quickly. Once we've got monitoring in place, we can figure out what your out of hours consumption is very accurately, and find ways to switch things off or put things on timers, or etc., etc. So the monitoring bit is key for me, particularly if you're measuring your carbon as well. And then that can obviously then be put into a report 6 months later after you've carried out various actions and maybe made a few investments. But you can test products as well by doing that, so you can prove concept of various solutions as well. And for me, that's really important to be able to prove concept of any technology that I'm recommending, so that clients feel confident about perhaps doing a bit more later down the road. But absolutely, monitoring and energy audits are. I'm doing a lot at the moment, but it's great. It's great because businesses are actively wanting to do this now and see the value in it as well.
So I think as well that's a really hard sell, isn't it? Because people don't see that immediate glossy panels on the roof and like an inverter showing how much energy is being produced by the panels. I think it's really important that you clean up the energy usage in the first place, right? There's no point in sticking 50 panels on your roof if you only need 30, because then the capital expenditure becomes, might skew it. So by monitoring, you can tune out some of that wasted energy. So, you know, air conditioning units that are going off too late or coming on too early, HVAC units that don't work properly or are less efficient than they could be.
Even the quality of your power as well, so things like voltage and your power factor, which you probably never really looked at, we can determine how good or bad that is, and whether it's worth investing in voltage optimization or power factor correction to improve the quality of your energy actually going into the building before it even hits your aircon or any of the things that you're using within your building.
I find all this absolutely fascinating because I know nothing about this. But what I do know, of course, is that the planet's been in existence for around 4 billion years. And it's only over the last 200 years that it's having this existential crisis. And it's only over the last 20 years that we've particularly noticed that it's getting warmer, that the flooding is more prevalent, and the planet is telling us in a very direct way that we've got to do something. And I'm just so pleased that people like these people on the panel with me actually know what to do about it.
Yeah, I think it is one of those things. When we started talking through how this session would look, when you mention sort of green and sustainability, people immediately sort of have images of swampy or someone in slippers and hemp, sort of hemp dresses, and it doesn't have to be that. You don't have to be that far down your process, because everything we do and anything we do is going to be a help, right? All incremental. But one of the things that gets missed, and this is where we get into that sort of little bit of virtue signalling, I guess, is why is it the most important thing, other than trying to save the planet? Why do you think this might be the most important thing that a gym owner can do at the moment? Rob?
Well, it certainly is important, because not only is it environmentally responsible, but we can also cut financial costs and even generate some revenue. So it's not just the environmental thing and it's the right thing to do morally. Is it the most important thing that a gym owner can do? It is important, but I don't think for a lot of gym owners it is the most important thing. I think there's a hierarchy of things here. They've got to be delivering a strong product consistently, looking after their team, having the right equipment, the right people, and those things in place first. It's no good recycling cans if the gym's failing. So you've got to get those big cogs in place first. But it is important. We're encouraging people to be healthier and happier, looking after their physical and their mental health. It's congruent that we encourage them and do our part to look after the planet at the same time, because they're inseparable. We are from the planet, and this is the only place we can live. So we've got to take care of the planet as well at the same time, do what we can responsibly. So it's congruent. The internal environment, the external environment, they're inseparable. It's vital that we take care of both.
100%. A few more examples from the gym. So we've got jog on.
Sure. If you're a gym owner, I implore you, get one of these boxes in this facility. They take the trainers that your members no longer need or want. If they've got any wear left, they go to a third world country. If they've got no wear left, then they go to, they're incinerated and they're used for road coverings. Ash is used for road coverings. So you'll probably have access to a lot of spent trainers, so it's a really good thing to do. And it costs about £2 to contribute towards the postage for the box to get sent off each time it's filled up. And members love it. They love contributing, because it's something that they're happy to then have to go shopping for new trainers. So they like to do that as well. This is, we've got a worm farm out back. Paper, yeah. So we've got a worm farm out back. So all our shredded paper goes into the worm farm. All our vacuum bags can be emptied into the worm farm. They eat dust. I didn't know this. And then they make compost, and then we grow tomatoes, which the team eats. So this has helped, again, reduce our footprint with Biffa, our recycling partner. We don't need to send as much to landfill anymore, because the paper, the dust, the food waste is all going to these worms, which then create compost. So it's small things, but I've never had anybody. I've had lots of positive comments from members. I've never had anybody come in and say, "This isn't cool. I don't want to be here. I don't condone this. It's not something I want to be part of." It's good for retention as well.
And all these measures that you put in place, how good does that make you feel about your business?
Well, it's like I said, we are in the business of encouraging people to be healthier and happier. And how healthy and happy can you be if you're living in a planet which is it's the more optimal the planet, the better health of the planet, then the better health we can be on ourselves individually as well. So it's vital. The two go hand in hand.
So again, it's a big piece of work. There's a lot of moving parts, but there are some really easy, quick wins. One of them is to maybe elect for that 100% green tariff. So unashamedly, I'm going to sell Quick Switch to you. The green tariff that we offer is 100% REGO back, so renewable energy guarantees of origin, which basically means that the supplier that we use generates their own power through solar, wind and wave. They sell that into the grid, and then if you sign up to their green tariff, you don't get electron for electron, but basically they put in the 50,000 kilowatt hours that you might take out. And for that, Ofgem then send you a REGO certificate to say that you've just tuned out X amount of metric tons of CO2. So that's a really easy win without any capital expenditure, with no upfront cost. Yes, it's operationally, there's a little bit more as a 0.9 of a penny tariff, premium on the tariff, but ultimately, with the basket, we're that much cheaper than the market. It's actually a really sort of cost negative way to actually make that first step. And then infrastructure-wise, John, what else? I mean, we've talked about monitoring being the first step, but what are the other low-hanging fruit?
I guess once we've carried out the audit, we figure out how you're using energy within your environments, and then we can provide a list of solutions that would be relevant. There might be some that you've already thought of, like LEDs and solar PV, which is the kind of default most businesses or business owners go to, but there's actually lots of other things you can do to reduce your consumption of energy and water. And again, it can all be monitored and confirmed, if you like, in terms of savings. But there's a product called Coolnomics, which has just saved a restaurant chain 30% on air conditioning. So I've worked with them this year, a company called Coke Brasserie, which you might have heard of, and we spent quite a few months working with them just to prove concept. So with a little bit of monitoring and a little bit of product, we've installed this technology called Coolnomics, and it's confirmed a saving of about 30%. So now they're looking at rolling it out across other sites as well, which is really good. So, but so honing in on where the big energy consuming areas are within a business first, using the monitoring, it could be out of hours. You could find that 30% of your energy consumption is you're out of hours, and that's where you start, which is where you can hopefully easily identify all of that and reduce that way. So that's where I would start.
Yeah, so we've talked about the energy. We're just setting up the waste procurement, so waste management procurement. The company we partnered with, again, having one eye on my sort of passion to be more sustainable and offer more sustainable services. That waste management company, it's a bit of greenwashing because they will offset the trip that wagon's going to take. So if it goes all the way through Ipswich, they will offset that through green certificates or planting trees. They've also got a zero to landfill policy, so if there's any way at all that they can either combust the waste and turn it into power or recycle it in any way, they will do that. So they're aiming for zero to landfill. Obviously that's not achievable, but they're aiming as near as zero to landfill as possible, and we'll be launching that in the new year, so keep your eyes out. That's why I wanted to talk to you about.
And it's interesting as well that we're having this session.
Carry on, David, whilst I work out.
Right. It's interesting that we're having this session in the same week that Virgin Atlantic flew across the Atlantic on zero carbon by reusing. You probably know more about it than I do.
Yeah, it's biodiesel, isn't it, or biofuel? I think it is. So, which is made of all sorts of different plants, I guess. So yeah, it's the first one of its kind, and I think it was fairly successful by all accounts. So.
Yeah.
Is that the same as HVO?
Yes. Yeah, I think it could be. Yeah.
So that happened on Tuesday. Yeah.
I think the other thing as well to mention, sort of going back to what Darren was saying, was I'm seeing a huge drive now from customers wanting businesses to be greener and actively asking, what are you doing? What are you doing to reduce your carbon? What are you doing to address climate change? And I've found that in lots of different sectors this year, manufacturing in particularly the steel industry. So contracts are not being awarded in certain cases if they cannot prove their net zero agenda and report on that. So for the first time I've had clients say to me, you know, rather than just focus on cost saving, is actually we're not going to win these contracts, we're not going to be able to deliver unless on those contracts unless we can demonstrate our net zero. So I think we'll be seeing a lot more of that from perhaps some of your customers. You know, what are you doing? And obviously some of the things that you're doing in your gyms, you know, to sort of tangibly show clients what you're doing is really, really powerful. So I think some good examples there.
So for those that don't read hexadecimal, I don't know what's happened there. It was fine this morning when I sent it. This was Do Your Members Care? And I unashamedly, Energym do quite a good blog piece on a regular basis, and I pulled a lot of figures off there. There was a couple of figures that I pulled when I did a blog for UK Active at the end of COVID, where we were talking about things like using more sustainable masks and gloves and things like that, you know, trying to sort of tune out some of those one-use plastics and things. What I will tell you is it's a beautiful slide. I don't know why it's not come up. So yeah, we're going to come on to why we would, you know, why do we bother trying to improve the environment? And Rob's going to answer that in a second. But just a couple of salient numbers. There's been a 71% rise in searches across the web for sustainable products and services. 75% of millennials considered sustainability when purchasing, and 80% of them would consider paying more for a sustainable product or service. I would suggest that that's one of the gym's target markets. 74% of people, and this comes back to Boohoo, 74% of people reported feeling either somewhat or very worried about climate change, and admitted to stop purchasing from brands that didn't align with their own philosophies. That's why it's important, isn't it?
And also, I have two 14-year-old granddaughters, and they are religious about that, and they make sure I am. so yeah, it's
grassroots level.
It's starting for younger and younger.
And it sets you apart. Do you promote that in your advertising, your your member retention, your member acquisition?
Sure, it's a point to differentiate on. The majority of independent gyms that I visit, they don't have separate waste receptacles for cans, for cardboard, for plastics. That's something that we offer, and it's something that we'll lean on occasionally in our social media to highlight that. I think the teens and the 20s and the 30s that are coming through now, I think it is really important. I think the reality is here now of the impact of on the climate and on the planet, and there's a lot more people more aware, and it's more important to them as well.
And what was the process like within the club to get? Because I was hear pushback from owners saying that if I put separate waste receptacles in, that the members aren't going to put empty bottles into the bottle can, the cardboard into the correct cardboard can. Is that something that you found, or was that just a process that's happened over time?
There's still some people put in the wrong thing in the wrong receptacle, and it frustrates me. We've realised that labelling the front of the bin is important. Labelling the other side of the bin, if it's in an open area, is also important, so that people don't just guess where they go. I don't think there's any malice or resistance to it. It's just sometimes it's people not thinking things through. Yeah. But I've seen no intentional resistance to it.
From a P&L point of view, we've been running some, in the process of building this waste management procurement strategy, we've been running some numbers with some clubs that have given us their statements so we can have a look through. And 90% of them have just got a black bin, like 1,100 litre black bin that goes each week, and they'll pay anywhere between 20 and 40 quid for that. Whereas we've sort of proposed a model where we have recycling, say plastics, cans, cardboard, and a smaller black, because the black is actually the most expensive commodity to move. And we've seen anywhere between 25 and 40%, and I'm sure you probably saw that moving with Biffa, you probably saw that as well, did you, in terms of saving on your monthly waste bill?
Yes, we save around £60 a month now on the monthly waste bill. It was around 110, it's come down to 50 by putting these things in place and reducing what goes to landfill and what goes for recycling. We take it to the scrapyard instead, so yeah.
And £600 a month straight into the bottom line for nothing.
£600 well,
Yeah.
£60 a month.
Okay,
So
so-
£720 a year.
Yeah. So yeah, an easy win. I think it's really interlinked. That's why I'm quite passionate about it. I said at the start, you know, as a broker, I don't want you using less electricity. I would like you to have black bins because we'll make more money out of a black bin. You know, but I think from the cost auditing side of me, I'm always trying to tune out those costs. And if you can tune out a bit of cost and do something for the planet, and then shout and scream about it to your members, does that include, you know, does that increase retention? Will it help acquisition? The corporates aren't really focusing. Gym Group's probably the only one. Is that, what do you say that, David? Maybe the corporates.
And you can see, you can see the effort that the Gym Group are putting in. So they've now got a whole series of KPIs which they are reporting on, and their ESG section in their annual report, it's available for, on their website, now covers almost a quarter of the total annual report.
I've put a QR code up. This is David's blog from COP26. So if you wanted to scan that and read what David had to say, grab that on your phone. I'm not grabbing any data. It's totally, it's GDPR compliant. What would you say, and we'll go to each of you, and then maybe throw it out to the floor a little bit as well, but what would you say are the main barriers to doing this or going through this process? Start with you, Rob.
I think initially that it's going to be a lot of work and that it's going to cost money, whereas it can be incredibly simple and actually save money.
I think for me, it's probably lack of knowledge on certain solutions, and that's what I do. I try and help break that down and make it simple and for a client to start somewhere rather than nowhere. That's and obviously give examples of other clients where they're already experiencing those savings. But yeah, the knowledge share is something I'm working on from a marketing point of view, but also to allow people to see that they can make significant savings in certain areas. So that's one of the barriers at the moment I see at the moment.
And I would say that it's just a lack of education, and so we probably all go through it in our own homes. So I was thinking while you were talking about the green electricity, for example, should I cancel my green electricity current provider, which is Shell, and come to you?
I'd love you to, David.
And so we're probably all looking at recycling in our own homes. And depending on which local authority you're living in, I live in Westminster, and they are very serious about recycling. So we do have 4 different bins, and now we've just started food recycling as well. So I think the local authority has a lot to do with educating the people that are living there, and then the clubs can feed off that as well.
Yeah, 100%. Is it something that in the Leisure DB work, is it a metric that you're measuring at the moment in the surveys at all? Is it something you're looking to?
So yes and no. So it's something that we'd like to include, but because we need a simple question. And each time I started talking to people about this, well, as you do, and as you've discovered, it could be a whole audit. And so we're auditing the supply side of the sites, and we're not auditing the energy side. But if there is a simple question that we could have, i.e., have you got solar panels on the roof? Do you use wind power? Then we could ask that.
Yeah, interesting. Operators, John, I'm going to come to you first. What do you see? I know you're quite a way down your path as well in certain steps that you've taken. What do you see as one of the main barriers, if you don't mind?
Money and its cost. Simple. It's a very simple metric. Fact is, to go green costs money. You know, so if you're going to replace all your lights with LEDs and put your switches in, they cost money, and the person that's got to pay for that is you, first and foremost. So you've got to have enough money to do that in the first place, to save money, and that's the perverse thing. You've got to spend money to save money.
Chicken and egg.
And you may not necessarily have that money to save money in the long run to make your bottom line better. And that's the hard thing. Where do you generate that income from to do the changes that's going to give you a better bottom line in the long place, make you feel better as well on top of that? I mean, because that's the thing I'm generating at the moment for trying to generate enough funds to do my solar power. You know, we've done the lights. When an old light now breaks, we replace it with an LED. We're putting our, our turn-off switches, automatic switches in all over the place. We try and buy as much equipment in the gym as possible that's self-powered where possible. You're never going to get away from treadmills. I mean, I think Sports Art developed one that kicked energy back, but financially wasn't viable, so nobody went down that road. There's some interesting things, that way. Getting staff to just turn off stuff, close doors, not leave stuff on. There's a big battle that can be done easily, but you've got to get their mindset into that, I think.
And we'll be in the millennials, right? And the customer
But, the irony of that is millennials are the most conscious, but they're the hardest to train. Us who've got children know that. So that's an interesting concept. But it's really interesting because obviously I'm going down that road, but there was a couple of things there straight away that they're doing.
So simple.
And I'm like that trainer thing. Be all over that. That'll be done next week, without a doubt. The bins, we do the plastic bins, and what's the hardest thing about the different bins is people are lazy. The 3 bins, they just go, the nearest one, I'll drop it in there. You know that, and it's just really annoying, isn't it? We know you have to go through that. I put a can crusher above the metal one, and how many people use the can crusher? I've even put a sign above the can crusher saying can crusher. Because I put it on the wall initially without the sign to see how many people would use it. Nobody. Now put the can crusher up, we get 20% of people use it. But the interesting thing that's out of your thing there is that I'm paying for a company to take my metal away that they're then getting money off. Bastards. So now, all over that, I'm going to get those cans ain't going in the recycling container anymore, they'll be going to black bags.
100%.
And I've got a recycling plant in my village where I live, so they'll just get dropped off there.
Awesome.
Your own business want to crush their own cans. Well, I like doing it, make me feel strong. We see. But but that I do like that recycling of the cans. I'd be interested to know about the paper and the cardboard thing. It's amazing how much cardboard we generate as gyms. You only have to get a bit of packaging for a machine, don't you? It's ridiculous.
Supplements coming out as don't they?
So that kind of stuff. So there's always stuff, and I'd be interested. Gym kit might be another one, isn't it, on the old recycling? Because you get those people that buy clothes, don't they? And we did I did look about that one about getting a. Well, my only concern is it's smelly kit, isn't it?
Is it going to be clean?
But they're the kind of thing. I think money is the biggest, and you've got to find money to save money.
And we've just come out of the back of the worst, pandemic, energy crisis, cost of living crisis, memberships dropping, things like that. I think, have you got a facility? Sorry, I don't. What?
It's Marshall Health Club.
Okay. Have you done anything?
We've just recently gone solar. We went solar in June.
Oh, wow.
92 panels put on the buildings. 92 panels.
Brilliant.
But we've, obviously, this needs to sort of sorted out because our energy prices have just tripled. We've gone solar, we've got our energy prices have tripled. So we're like, hey. So,
have they hooked it up wrong?
So we're on more than 1 metre in the building.
Okay.
2 metres together. It's like about education. It's educating, getting the right product in the right place, and it's not been easy. Then you've got the export license as well. So any surplus you export back to the grid. And we're starting to do that. And so you can pay for the export.
Yeah. It's a bit of a dying market, the export now, because there's just not the same. There was funding to buying energy that was produced on solar panels and wind and all that kind of stuff. And it used to be buy it at sort of 16, 18p off you per kilowatt hour. Now, because there's none of those subsidies from government, it's more like 3-4 pence a kilowatt hour, and it might not be worth it. And then batteries come into it. You might want to store the excess if the batteries were efficient as they could be, but sometimes they're not.
Expensive batteries as well when you store them. the government needs to do more to incentivise
Sure.
our investment. We were lucky because we got the super tax deduction which ended
Yeah.
in March. We've got it in March.
Yeah.
But now anyone looking at purchasing solar panels for 40 grand, that really is no support.
No.
You get the VAT back, that's it.
There was talk that they were going to up the business rate valuation, weren't there? And I mean that was literally, so whilst they're telling us to move to net zero, the valuations office were talking about the improvement in the value of the building and therefore the rateable value and therefore then your business rate, which is just counterintuitive. Sorry? No, they scrapped it, but there was talk of it. But I think, yeah, it is an interesting subject. I think the one thing that we wanted to get out of and get across to you guys is there are some really simple things. There are some cost-neutral things that you could be doing. Hopefully, it's given you something to think about. But I think one of the things I'd love you to sort of walk away thinking about, even if it is just putting jog on in, and spreading that across your social media and talking about. I've had no fun with this laptop, have I, today? Okay. Was basically to push that side of it through your social media and speak to your clients and your members about the things that they're passionate about. I think that's super important. I think we'd all agree with that, and hopefully most of you in here would. That's what we've got. Anybody got any questions for any of the panel? Yes.
Yeah, I do. So I work for a supplier or an operator.
Okay.
But just when you talk about some of the information about what customers expect, we sell a lot to home customers. So are there any good places where we can go to get market data about what our customers are interested in? So to give you an idea, our typical demographic is from 40 to 65, relatively affluent. I'm expecting they'll be interested in ESG, but we're not going to necessarily go out to our database or for our CRM system and ask what we're interested in. However, is there any really good metrics out there already to say these sorts of people are interested in this?
I don't cover residential, so I can't help. You're probably the only one with a toe in residential. I think it's really difficult. Look, you've got things like Octopus Energy have been really vocal in terms of what they're doing at the moment and buying energy back off you if you put solar panels on, and different rates of charging during the day. In terms of, and you were asking for one simple question to ask, it might be as simple as who's your energy supplier, and if it's Octopus Energy, hopefully that will then flag up that this particular home client is interested in that, has ESG at the front of their forefront, because yes, it's a cost saving, but they're also doing it for another reason, aren't they? They're also doing it for that, buying greener power and buying greener energy. Other than that, sorry, you stumped me, because like I say, we don't do anything residentially. If you were talking commercially, there isn't, there's a piece of work that started, literally got launched this week with UK Active called Sustainable Futures. And within that body of work, there's going to be some data capture in terms of how far along people are to their net zero. And they're actually, so I don't know if you've come across the digital transformation one as well, that they did 3 years ago, started 3 years ago. And there's a digital maturity calculator in there. So I'm really digitally mature or I'm totally inept. So obviously, clearly, I'm totally inept. But they're going to hopefully release a similar metric on sustainable futures, but it's going to be sort of 2 years, 3 years down the line.
I sit on the UK Active Independent Gym Owners Serum Group. So I have a couple of things on the agenda that I drive. I'd be interested to know, if there's anything else anybody wants driving. One is obviously, which we worked hard on the rates reduction. We pushed that forward, and we're trying to make that a permanent thing. Obviously, we've got another 12 months. It gives us 12 months to go at them again. Okay, we're trying to obviously get that reduced, because if you're unaware, local authorities have now got VAT off and we haven't, and that's going to legal very shortly to fight that battle. Okay, because why should we be paying VAT on health and well-being? Just perverse in its own right. And obviously the other thing I'll be pushing and we're trying to do is obviously financial support for going green, such as solar panels and that kind of stuff. Obviously from the budget you were aware the government put 10 billion aside, didn't they, for not just R&D, which we can't get into because we don't actually develop anything, but for equipment purchase. We're trying to, UK Active are trying to get the finite what that actually is. and hopefully we'll be able to link it to some of that 10 billion fund. So it might be that we'll be able to buy solar panels with that funding and get the VAT back and more and stuff and that kind of thing. It'd be interesting to see. But that'll come out in the next few months, hopefully, what that 10 billion fund will be.
Yeah, and there's, I mean, I don't know if you tapped into it, but the local authorities will have funding for green. It's dropping a little bit, there's less and less of it about, but there are local authorities that will support 50%, 60% of your capital expenditure, but it's hard to access because you don't know where to look. So we're currently working with a partner at the moment trying to streamline that. So you basically put in your postcode, and whether that's you want to put EV charging points in, fund solar panel installation, or you want to offer some community outreach to your locality to do, you know, sort of after school classes for kids or something like that, and get some funding back that way. So we're looking to develop that. So keep an eye on watch my space, if you like, in terms of social media.
EV charging?
Yeah.
What's the latest on that? Is there any funding for that?
In places, it's 100% depends on your local authority. Some of them have dropped it totally. Tend to find sort of inner city ones, there's less of it about now because they think there's an infrastructure in place that's good enough to support us all going EV. The more rural sort of county councils, there's still some available. We'll share details and I can do that postcode check for you, but there is a little bit. There used to be £3,500 per charging point. John and myself were talking about one that I think if you can get 6 in, there might be some funding there. But yeah, it's postcode by postcode, so we can look at that.
And if you come and drive in Westminster, every lamppost has been converted.
What's the charge rate on those? That's what I'm interested. What are they charging to a kilowatt?
No idea, because I don't have a plug-in.
If grid serve got anything to do with it, better off getting a petrol car. That's the other first thing, isn't it? You know, we're all trying to save energy and go stuff. Yeah, like I've got an electric vehicle, drove that here, and I charged at grid serve last night at Rugby Services, and I'm basically paying petrol prices. You know,
really?
The government need to do something about that.
Well, it got to a point in the energy crisis where it was actually cheaper mile for mile to fill it up with diesel than it was to charge it. And again, that's perverse, isn't it?
And then, like the other thing, where on earth, for instance, would it be okay for Shell just to give petrol to Renault cars? Whereas at the moment we've got Tesla, we've got charging points all over the country, which we can all use, yet they only give it to Tesla users. Yeah? That is just wrong, isn't it?
That's getting really, really existential, isn't it?
It's fundamentally wrong, isn't it? We're trying to go green, we're doing everything we're doing, and yet the government's walk. Because my other concern about going green is I put solar panels on there. I don't then pay for my electric because I'm 90% off grid. When are the government going to suddenly start charging me for the privilege of having green energy that I've paid for, that I've put the infrastructure in, because they're not getting the tax from what I did have previously?
Well, again, that was where the business rates were going to come in, right?
Yeah.
So hopefully that's frozen, fingers crossed. It didn't rear its ugly head again in this autumn statement, and I think it was rode back on maybe 2 autumn statements ago. But yeah, there's always that. I think there's 2 points for, if I was sat in your shoes as an operator, it's the overwhelming nature of what you've got to try and achieve, the cost, and where do I start, and you know, and when is it going to bite me? You know, at some point down the line, is it going to bite me? I think those are the things that when I speak to operators, I find that that's the sort of barrier and the pushback.
One of the things I'd like to try and do, and I've said this to UK Active, is try and put a handbook together. Just even with the little things like you've done, you know, so any gym owner can go onto the UK Active site and go, grab that handbook and go, right, this is how you get a job on books, this is how you do that, this is how you do that, this is the site you go to for that. You know, it'd just be handy, even if it was independent gym owners, your website that we could do that on. I think that's something we need to look at.
Amy's got I'm going to say a bee in your bonnet, but that's the wrong way to put it, isn't it? But you're looking to do much more green orientated stuff, and maybe even a green zone next year.
Definitely, yeah.
So,
I think that would be really
and then a toolkit.
A handbook that we, you know, for those that have just started or for those that are going down that, we could grab and go, oh, there's our contact for green energy.
That's what we are working on. What you'll see on the website, which is underway at the moment, is, you know how you have your tiles where you can go to equipment suppliers, to software. We're going to have a green category, so anybody that comes under that will be in that group. So if you are looking at sustainable fitness, we're going to have a dedicated
landing page to go to with all our partners that are offering green solutions.
I think there's talk of a toolkit as well, isn't there?
Yeah.
And UK Active already talked about a toolkit, so there's going to be something kicking around at some point.
It's just one of those things. It's just, the green stuff, as you can see by the road, it's a slow burner. It's sensible people, aren't it? But it's a slow burner, and it's just trying to get the education out there that I think people kind of see themselves as either we agree or we're not green, but it doesn't have to be like that. You just need to be aware of it, and then you'll step change everything. It's not a rip your whole gym out and start again. It's just little things you can do to just start looking at it.
So I think, just speaking as a supplier, gym owner, how important is it that your kit is packaged in the right way? Because if you're buying it from China, you're always going to have polystyrene, you're going to have plastic and everything. So we've moved away from buying from China to basically package everything in cardboard, which is what's now starting to happen, and we're starting to do that. How important as a gym owner is it that you buy kit which is actually packaged that way rather than packaged in China?
Rob?
Yeah, I don't buy kit from China at all. But good. The overriding consideration with kit is the quality of the equipment, and it will be nice if it's packaged with an environmentally friendly angle on it, but it won't be the prime consideration, because that is a moment in time in the gym, and how the equipment performs is for 10 or 20 years. So it'd be nice if it's packaged properly, but the kit quality is important.
Time for lunch, guys. Thank you ever so much. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope it's given you some food for thought. I'm downstairs in the exhibition centre area. John is as well. Rob is still hanging around. David's got his own stand as well if you wanted to catch up with us separately. Thank you for your time. Really appreciate it. See you soon.